the great fundamental issue now before our people can be stated briefly. It is, are the American people fit to govern themselves, to rule themselves, to control themselves? I believe they are. My opponents do not.
I believe in the American Constitution. I favor the American system of individual enterprise. I am in favor of protection. I believe in the permanent court and further limitation of armament. I am opposed to aggressive war.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes.
Whether we shape the future in the image of our hopes is ours is to determine by our actions and our choices. If we succeed, generations to come will say of us now living that we mastered our moment.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
Leading the right out of the ashes, this is The Right Take.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome one and all to episode number 67 here on The Right Take. I am Eric Lendrum, and unfortunately, my co-host Jacob Grandstaff is still out. He is not back this week. He will be back in the very near future, I assure you. He's not going anywhere, nothing like that. We are still going stronger than ever before, and we are looking forward to delivering whole new levels of content for you guys. Starting with this episode, we will be having another special guest interview very soon. You can already see who it is through the title of this video, of course, but before we get to our special guest, we have to once again give you an election recap right here at The Right Take. And this last week, we had the biggest primary night yet of the season in terms of the sheer number of states that held their primaries in a single day. Seven states had their primaries on Tuesday. Those states are California, Iowa, Mississippi, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, and South Dakota. But when you take a little closer look, you will see that, of course, there's not a lot of excitement here in the sense that there's not a lot of swing states that voted tonight. The biggest swing state, of course, is Iowa, which is, like Ohio and Florida, a swing state that became much more red under the Trump administration and is still trending that way to this day. But it's mostly deep red states and deep blue states. But to make it somewhat exciting, I'm going to focus on the few interesting races that happened here and their results, which unfortunately were not great overall. This was not a very exciting night, even in the few interesting races in these states. I want to first focus on one that was interesting. In New Jersey, the race for the 4th congressional district there. This one is interesting because it is a safely red seat, and the incumbent there is a fellow by the name of Chris Smith. Now, what is special about Chris Smith? He is tied with Kentucky Congressman Hal Rogers for the record of the longest serving incumbent member of Congress, member of the House of Representatives to this day. Chris Smith was elected in 1980 and took office January 3rd of 1981. back when Jimmy Carter was still president. It was the eve of the Reagan presidency. Members of Congress be in office for that long, but he's clearly been doing something right, I guess, as far as his constituency, because he is still there. But he faced a pretty serious primary challenge this year by someone you would not have expected, a potential new young blood here in the conservative scene, in the America First scene, 28-year-old Mike Crispy, who is a commentator with an outlet you may have heard of, Right Side Broadcasting Network, RSBN, which rose to prominence in 2015 by being basically the first outlet that said, we are going to live stream and cover in real time every single event featuring then candidate Donald J. Trump. Every single rally, every single speech, and they are still doing it to this day, reliably, along with a couple of others like Newsmax. Anytime President Trump gives a rally, you can bet RSBN will have it on YouTube, on Rumble, and elsewhere. So this 28-year-old commentator from RSBN, a very popular, America First outlet, nonetheless, very pro-Trump, decided he was going to run against Chris Smith. And he ran with some pretty solid grassroots support behind him. He was endorsed by Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, former Mayor Rudy Giuliani, Kari Lake, the frontrunner for the governor's race in Arizona, the Republican there who was endorsed by President Trump. Also, Crispy is endorsed by Roger Stone, based, and the American Populist Union, among others. So he went into this race with some serious momentum against a longtime incumbent. Unfortunately, he fell short with 37% to Chris Smith's 57.6%. So a 20-point margin of defeat, which on the surface doesn't sound great, but when you consider that this is a first-time political candidate for anything as young as he is, he would be the new youngest member of Congress after Madison Cawthorn was primaried out. But to fall short by that much, or to have, I guess, that impressive of a showing in his first run, is not bad. I think, realistically, with this grassroots support he had the first time around, and now to have some name recognition in the district, he could build up off of this and build the foundation for something stronger to possibly run again in the future for this seat or for something else. So let's keep an eye on his future in the coming years. But Chris Smith, of course, won the nomination and will most likely win the general election. Iowa, the one big swing state that had their primaries on Tuesday, a bit of an upset, I think, in the U.S. Senate race. I didn't see this coming. So, of course, Chuck Grassley, the incumbent senator, that's another guy who has been there for a very, very long time. He also was first elected in 1980. He will be 89 years old. But the race for the Democratic nomination, although this, like I said, Iowa is a red state, a swing state that has turned red, it's widely expected that Grassley will win and hold this seat. But the Democratic nomination was definitely interesting. The frontrunner for the longest time is a woman named Abby Finkenauer, who previously was elected to Congress from Iowa in 2018 as part of the Big Blue Wave, and subsequently was then defeated in 2020, just 2 short years later. She served only 1 term and she was out. There were a handful of Democrats who won office across the country in a handful of swing seats in California and Iowa and elsewhere. They won in 2018 off of the usual anti-incumbent sentiment, and then were defeated just 2 years later, so the seat was returned back to normal. She was the frontrunner. She had spent more money than any other Democratic candidate, and in the polls, even just in the weeks leading up to the primary, she was leading by double digits over the next highest candidate, Michael Franken, who was a retired rear admiral in the U.S. Navy. She outspent him by almost $1 million, and in several polls, in one poll, she led him 64-15, and another one 53-26. A handful of undecideds there, but still decisive margins in these polls that suggested she would win outright. The final poll of the race, held roughly 1 month before the primary, so a little bit outdated, but the final poll nonetheless did have Franken in the lead by 2 points, 42-40%, with 14% of the voters undecided. And yet, when the primary came around, Franken defeated her 55-40. So a landslide margin that we didn't see coming, and I would assume that he's probably a little slightly more moderate candidate than she was. She was a bit more left-wing, feminist and all that stuff. So that's a bit of an upset, but Grassley is still obviously the favorite to win that seat and to hold that seat. So no real surprises here, but either way, that was definitely something I did not see coming and a pleasant surprise. So hopefully she will realize her career, or whatever political career she had, is definitely done, and that will be the last we have seen of her. Other races in Iowa that are worth keeping an eye on is, of course, we know Kim Reynolds is most likely going to be reelected as governor. That's not much of a surprise. The one and only seat left, Iowa has 4 congressional districts. The one and only seat left, still held by a Democrat, held by Cindy Axne. The primary there was won by State Senator Zach Nunn, who, among other things, was endorsed by former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Interesting. Due to redistricting, the polls seem to suggest that this particular seat could flip red. And if it does, Iowa will go 100% red across the board. All the statewide offices, both senators, and all 4 seats in the House of Representatives. So keep an eye on Iowa 3 in November. This was my personal favorite race. Montana, another deep red seat, obviously, but one of a few states that did gain a seat as a result of the 2020 U.S. Census. So with redistricting, they went from having a single at-large district to 2 districts. So incumbent Congressman, formerly of the at-large district, Matt Rosendale, ran for the nomination for the new 2nd district, which he won handily. In the 1st district, an old name from the past returned, Ryan Zinke. Why does the name sound familiar? Former Navy SEAL who previously served as the congressman for Montana's at-large district before he was then selected to be the Secretary of Interior in the Trump administration from the get-go. A great guy, Trump supporter all the way, from the very beginning. He is now running to take technically his old seat, I guess, or half of his old seat. He ran for the nomination for the 1st district, was challenged by a former state senator named Albert Olszewski, and it was a little bit closer than you would think. But with Trump's endorsement, as well as the endorsement of Montana Senator Steve Daines and Governor, former Congressman as well, Greg Gianforte, Zinke ultimately did manage to win by around 1,600 votes. So a pretty close margin there, about a 2-point margin over Olszewski. And he is the Republican nominee for the seat, which is R+10. So he is obviously most likely going to win the general election against the Democratic nominee. So Zinke will be returning to Congress, a staunch Trump ally. He's one more person we definitely need in Congress. So that is a welcome return. Definitely the biggest election result of the night that everyone is talking about came from my home state, California. And of course, there's not much to see in the statewide races. We did see Republicans manage to make the runoff again in this jungle primary system. The top 2 candidates go to the general. We did see Republicans manage to beat Democrats and make it to the runoff in the elections for governor and U.S. senator and a handful of other statewide offices. But the biggest victory definitely of the night was in the modern day Sodom, the most left-wing city in all of America, San Francisco. Well, did a Republican win in San Francisco? No, of course, that's not what happened. But in a race with huge ramifications for progressives all across the country, again, if this could happen in San Francisco, this could happen anywhere. The district attorney, Chesa Boudin, who, spoiler alert, is the son of literal domestic terrorists. His parents were both members of the far-left domestic terrorist group Weather Underground, sentenced to prison for murder for a robbery that left 2 police officers and a security guard dead in New York. While his parents were in prison, they went to prison when he was 14 months old, by the way. He was raised by leaders of the Weather Underground, Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn. So you can imagine what this hell spawn, the children of domestic terrorists biologically and foster parents, would do. Of course, when he became district attorney in San Francisco in 2019, he immediately started implementing soft on-crime policies, reducing sentences and reducing penalties for certain crimes, and basically saying we're going to let criminals go and we're going to let people use drugs freely in the streets. We're not going to deal with the homeless issue, and we're going to instead crack down on cops, because of course that's what he said he would do. Surprise, he was one of many district attorneys backed by George Soros. But I guess even San Franciscans saw that it was just too much. The homelessness, the needles lying around, crap in the streets, crime running amok, robberies in broad daylight that forced a number of Walgreens and other convenience stores to shut down their locations in San Francisco because it was just too much. They had enough, and a recall election was held, and against all odds, this man, this Soros-funded progressive, lost in San Francisco. 56% voted to recall him, 44% voted to keep him. That's a 12-point margin, and that's a landslide. I didn't think it would happen. I thought he would survive, but he is out, and now Mayor London Breed, a Democrat, of course, will appoint a successor to take his place. So is this, of course, a Republican victory? No, he's still going to be replaced by a Democrat, and that was always going to be the case. If this had been like a regular election of him running against a Republican, he would have won. But the fact of the matter is that because voters knew he would be replaced by a Democrat, they voted to recall him, figuring, okay, maybe we'll get someone in who will be a little bit better on crime, or at least promises to be better on crime. Kind of like what happened in New York City with Eric Adams, a former police officer himself, taking over for de Blasio and basically saying, all right, I'm going to be a little bit tougher on crime, guys. Although we're still yet to see if he will actually honor those commitments. But either way, just running on that message got him elected. And that is what happened here. This is a pretty big deal because certainly if this could happen in San Francisco, I think this definitely could happen in Los Angeles as well. They are also trying to recall their district attorney there, George Gascon, who formerly was DA of San Francisco before he moved to LA to be DA there and was succeeded again by Chesa Boudin. So George Gascon has definitely got to be watching his back. He is another Soros-funded prosecutor. So we'll keep an eye on that one. That recall is not until November, unfortunately. But that is definitely a white pill in California, which is a very, very rare thing, to say the least. We will continue to give you guys more updates on the primaries as they happen. The next primary is coming up, just a small handful of states, 4 states. Again, mostly red states, but with one big swing state that will be voting on Tuesday, June 14th, and that is Nevada. That is a very crucial seat, both their governor's race and the race for U.S. Senate there. Trump has made his pick in both cases, and we will be bringing you those results after they happen in next week's episode. And now we have another very special surprise for you guys here at The Right Take. We do our best to broaden the scope, broaden the scale of what we do here at the podcast. And what better way to do that than with guests? We have had a handful of esteemed guests on the show in the past, including Liberty Hangout's Caitlin Bennett and our buddy Tom Papper at Valiant News. So we've got another guest here for you, ladies and gentlemen. This is, full disclosure, this is a friend that we have been trying so hard to get on the podcast for quite a while now, but we've been busy mutually on both sides. We've just had a bunch of things coming up. But we have finally managed to nail it down, to lock it down. We have got him here on The Right Take for your entertainment as well as ours. He is affiliated with a former guest. And, ladies and gentlemen, I can announce to you here and now on The Right Take for the first time, we are going international. We are reaching out to our very first guest all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. The one and the only Jack Hadfield. Jack, welcome to The Right Take.
Well, thank you for having me on, Eric. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you here, man. I am so looking forward to this episode. So, as I hinted, you are affiliated with one of our previous guests, the man who was our first ever guest on The Right Take and our first 2-time guest, Tom Papper at Valiant News. You, of course, work closely with Tom at Valiant News. You guys have a daily show where the two of you just cover the latest happenings in politics and pop culture and whatnot. So, Jack, why don't you go ahead and first off just introduce yourself, and maybe, if you feel so inclined, preview some of the stuff coming down the pipeline from you guys at Valiant News.
Yeah, well, as you said, I'm very well very well affiliated with Tom. I'm now I'm the associate editor over at Valiant News under his fantastic leadership, and yeah, I'm also the co-host on Valiant News Live, as you said, which is a show that we do. It's great fun. It's the first sort of, because I've done interviews and stuff like this before, but I've never really done sort of a regular show, regularly hosting this. I'm in the same studio where I usually present it, which is my bedroom.
We all got to start somewhere, right, man?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we have great fun there over there. We have a great team on the site at Valiant News as well, of course. And we've been producing a number of stories. And you said things that are coming up. We've got more exclusive interviews with a number of guests that we've pre-recorded. They've just been in the backlog, but they should be coming out soon. Interviews again, upcoming stuff scheduled. We're looking at reaching out to some various interesting people. Now that will be good content upcoming, but I can't really say much more about that now. But yeah, I mean, as you said, we produce news articles all day, every day about the stuff that people really want to be interested in.
Of course, and you guys never fail to deliver. I've watched your show with Tom every now and again, and it never fails to make me laugh and inform me at the same time. You guys just have some great insights and great analysis that you're not going to hear anywhere else. So seriously, guys, check them out, Valiant News Live. So to start this off, of course, at the beginning of the episode, I did, as what I have been doing for the last few weeks, I recapped the results of the latest round of primaries, the biggest round of primaries yet, most amount of states in a single day. But I gotta be honest with you, Jack, and I'm sure you'll agree with me on this. The biggest news in terms of 2022 midterms is not the result of any single election or who won or who lost a primary or what have you. I think the biggest news we got over the last couple of weeks was another very important endorsement from our favorite president, Donald Trump, who made an endorsement in what I think is one of the crucial races all across the country. Arguably the race that will determine control of the United States Senate above all else. And he endorsed, I think, one of the absolute best, most base America First candidates in this entire cycle. He endorsed Blake Masters, the Peter Thiel associate who co-authored the best-selling book 0 to 1 with Peter Thiel, who is running for the U.S. Senate in the state of Arizona to challenge incumbent Democrat Mark Kelly, the crazy gun-grabbing astronaut. So, Jack, I understand you and I are both certified J.D. Vance stans. You and I were both very excited when Based Hillbilly Man won President Trump's endorsement. We supported him before that. And we were just over the moon when he won that primary in a landslide, more than 10 points over the runner-up, that weasel career politician Josh Mandel, although the polls suggested, oh, it could be close, Mandel could still beat him, or the never-Trumper Matt Dolan could rise to first while those two cancel each other out. None of that happened. J.D. Vance is going to the finals in November, and by all accounts, God willing, he's probably easily going to take that seat against the crazy Bernie wannabe Tim Ryan. So he's going to be a senator soon, most likely from the state of Ohio. Arizona is going to be a bit tougher, as we know. It was questionably won by Joe Biden in 2020, and the audit in Maricopa County showed a lot of some sussy stuff going on there. So this is ripe for being taken back by the Republicans, and realistically, if they can't win this seat, they probably won't take back the Senate at all. So I am excited about this. Jack, what are your thoughts on Based Blake Masters?
Yeah, that's the thing. He's 100% my favorite of the, new candidates. I love, a number of people in Congress now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar. But in terms of the newcomers, I mean, you can't get any better than Blake Masters at all. You mentioned J.D. Vance, who is also part of that same sort of Teal crowd. I was so glad he won. But obviously he got his endorsement right before the primary actually happened.
So close.
With Masters, it's far out. And I think this is the thing, Trump's learned from Vance. And I think Vance in many ways also learned from Trump. Vance was somebody I was a little suspicious of the fact, I think he voted Evan McMullin in 2016 and had various sort of never Trump past. But this is the important thing that Trump said in his endorsement of Vance was that, he gets it now. And I think Vance is 100% fully on our train. But with Masters, I don't think I've ever seen anything that I could criticize him at one point now or in the past. He's come out with some insanely based things. Literally the day before his endorsement, he said, the New York Times would call me a nationalist. Guilty as charged. Sorry. Sorry for being a nationalist, but I am now, and you'll deal with it. And we're going America first all the way. And I think, as you saw with Vance, he was sort of, it was a pretty tight race, with only a few days to go. Gets a Trump endorsement, boom, wins pretty easily.
Landslide.
With Masters, he was already pulling ahead, coming up from 9% or something back in the polls in November. He has this momentum. He was already getting a few points ahead in the latest poll from a pro Blake Masters super PAC, which I think Breitbart released last week or a couple of weeks back or so. And with this Trump endorsement, there's no way in my mind now that this won't make him the complete dominant leader in the as we come up to the primary actually being held.
Exactly. There are so many more parallels between the Ohio primary and the Senate and the Arizona primary. In both cases, it's almost uncanny. In both cases, you have 5 major candidates on each side. You have your initial front runner for the primary, who is only really the front runner because they're the only statewide official in the race. So they have that default name recognition and they just run off of that and nothing else. You had that with Josh Mandel, the former state treasurer in Ohio. And in Arizona, you had that with Attorney General Mark Brnovich. And we will get back to that weasel in just a minute. But then he's the front runner for the longest time. But in both cases, the dominant choice in every single primary poll is not front runner, statewide front runner. It's the undecided option, showing that overwhelmingly voters are still kind of up in the air. They don't really know who to go for. Then the front runner is challenged by a businessman who has never held office before. You had that with businessman Mike Gibbons in Ohio, and then in Arizona with Jim Lehman, the solar power businessman, and we will come back to him as well. So that businessman kind of rises into first place, and in both cases, in Ohio and Arizona, the front runner and the businessman kind of clash with each other, allowing for the America First candidate to soar right into the lead, to rise above the fray, get Trump's endorsement, and win the nomination. Obviously, the last part hasn't happened yet in Arizona. Their primary is painfully far away. It's not until August 2nd. But nevertheless, this was actually important. It was pointed out to me that, yes, as you said, this is much sooner this is much more before the primary than it was in Ohio. In Ohio, it was, I think, 10 days before the primary. Mail-in votes, mail ballots had already gone out. That was a big problem. That was mail ballots being counted first in Ohio seemed to indicate Vance would have a rough night. Then day of election, and later mail ballots came in, and he ran away with it. Trump's endorsement went out in Arizona right before mail ballots were being sent out for the first time. So that obviously played a factor, and that is going to be on everyone's minds when they're casting their votes by mail, and especially on election day. So, God willing, Blake Masters will be able to pull this off because, like you said, he has risen above the fray. In the last few polls here and there, he was already doing well, whereas Vance was kind of languishing in 4th place in a lot of polls. So he's much in a better position. As Jacob and I talked about in the previous episode, talked about the Georgia primaries, a big boost to Vance and presumably to Masters as well is they both have $10 million each in Peter Thiel funding for just the primaries. That obviously plays a huge role as well. But it is so important, like you said, that Blake Masters has become the frontrunner because a huge part of Trump's endorsement statement, one of the longest and most comprehensive yet, it was mostly pro-Blake. You know, he's great on guns, he's great on the border, he's America first, all the good stuff. He devoted a giant paragraph, a mini thesis towards the end, to an anti-endorsement of Mark Brnovich, the incumbent attorney general who did jack squat to fight back against voter fraud in 2020. He insisted, oh, there's no fraud. Biden's winning legitimately. He certified the results along with Secretary of State Katie Hobbs and Governor Doug Ducey. And suddenly, and he didn't support the Arizona Senate audit either. Then suddenly, he's running for Senate. And now, oh, I believe in election integrity. Yeah, okay, stuff it, Berno. We know where you're coming from. So Trump saw through that and knew he was full of it. Jim Layman is completely funded by China. He has a well-documented history of years of doing business with China to the tune of millions of dollars for his solar power business. And as recently as 2018, was in a Time magazine article, front and center, bashing Trump's protectionist tariff policies because they were hurting his business with China. So Trump saw right through that. And there's 2 other candidates, a former Arizona National Guard adjutant general named Mike McGuire, and a Arizona Corporation Commissioner, that's a position they have, I guess, named Justin Olson. So they're irrelevant. No one cares about them. So Masters is the clear frontrunner. This is a worse field in terms of his competition, a less competitive field than what Vance was up against. Vance was up against some pretty decent competitors. So all going in his favor. Masters should win this nomination, I think. And I don't know if this is a result of Trump's endorsement or what, but you got to back me up here, Jack. Has Blake Masters not been getting even more based since Trump endorsed him?
I know. I thought it wasn't possible, but here he is. You know, coming out. Especially, there was a thing where recently he had to help physically remove a 73-year-old protester who got into an altercation at a GOP event, and obviously, of course, the media said, oh, Blake Masters is rough handling this poor old Democrat who's done nothing wrong at all. And then I think he tweeted back. He was like, I can't believe the media is coming after me, for defending somebody who hit a woman. And then he was like, 10 out of 10 would do it again.
That is legendary. Yes, and the video, this guy, the protester, old white man, 73-year-old white guy in a BLM shirt, was filming himself, holding the phone like way high above his head for a bird's eye view, I guess. He films himself as, he gets an argument with Blake Masters supporters. He punches an old woman in the face, a shorter than him, smaller than him, punches her in the face. So immediately Masters himself and several of his supporters run up to the guy to grab him and throw him out of the building. And that was just absolutely legendary. And of course, the media ran away with, oh, he assaulted an innocent protester. Fact checkers, there's no proof he hit a woman. It's literally on the video, guys. Fact checkers are just such a waste of skin and a waste of oxygen at this point. And this was great. It has been reported, Benny Johnson from Turning Point USA reported this. The man in question, 73-year-old Peter Jackson, not of Lord of the Rings fame, apparently is a convicted sexual predator who molested his own underage daughter.
No way. Oh, you cannot make it up.
It never fails.
Well, obviously, thinking with Kyle Rittenhouse, can't remember his name. He was a pedophile.
Yep.
And now you've got this guy, diddles his underage daughter, done for that. How come all of these Democrats are all pedophiles?
It never fails. Kyle Rittenhouse just randomly fired into a crowd of Antifa protesters and hit one child molester, one domestic abuser, and a burglar. Like, it's target practice on criminals, on the worst of society. Oh, man. But yeah, Blake Masters looking stronger than ever. And then I'm sure you saw this one. The media, I first saw this in the Huffington Post, naturally. They had an uproar over what Masters had to say about guns. Because, of course, in the aftermath of the Buffalo and Uvalde shootings, there's another renewed push for gun control. Actually, on my way to the studio here today, I took the metro and I saw a bunch of anti-gun protesters heading to a protest on the National Mall. Spoiler alert, most of them were boomers. They were all wearing masks, and they all had the most basic signs you can think of. One of them had a sign, clearly a professional, well-designed sign. I didn't see what it said, but it was some gun control message written in rainbow, because of course it is the month of June. It's, Mental Illness Awareness Month. So anyway, so guns are obviously all the rage right now. So Blake Masters gave a statement on guns, and when I saw this, I love this. Quote, "We do have a gun violence problem in this country, and it's gang violence. It's people in Chicago, St. Louis, shooting each other. Very often, black people, frankly," end quote. So
It's true.
I love, my favorite part of that whole statement is that he had to throw the word frankly on at the very end there. That's such a Trump move. Like, frankly, it's black people, frankly. But I mean, the media got in an uproar. He's a racist. He's a racist. I mean, the best part about that, he's not wrong. Everything he just said is true. Gang violence, you look at Chicago, you look at Detroit, you look at every crime statistic from the FBI and the DOJ that they hate talking about. They hate talking about those numbers. It is true. There's plenty of black conservative commentators who will talk about this on Fox News and elsewhere. There is a problem of gun violence and gang culture in black culture in America today. And now, whether you want to talk about the possible causes for that or possible solutions to fix that, that's a different story. I'm going to leave that up to the Candace Owenses of the world. But it's true. It's a true statement. And Blake Masters, you gotta love this, Jack. He didn't even have to go out of his way to say that, because there's not exactly a huge black population in Arizona. They have obviously more Hispanics because they're right on the border. They got a problem with illegals. But he didn't have to say that, but he went for it anyway. What the absolute mad lad. I love him so much.
Yeah, no, it's great, to have people like Blake who are coming out and just telling the truth about difficult issues. That's the thing. It is, it is gang crime, and most of the members are black, and it's like that's a fact. And you can't get mad over something that is literally true. Like, what they could get mad about is saying, it's the black gang members are doing it, and they're doing it because they're black. It's something about them being black that makes them this way, which is obviously, that's a completely different point. The point is, he's saying this is a thing, because if you can't identify what the problem is, you can't fix it.
Exactly. And he is a problem solver. Business, being a partner with Peter Thiel, and that's one more thing that I think is just so disingenuous, because we're going to bounce right off of that. The attacks that have come out against him are the same attacks that came out against Vance. Almost. Of course, the big thing against J.D. Vance is, he was an ever-Trumper, which the moment Trump endorsed him, that issue was a dead issue, because who cares if he's anti-Trump if Donald Trump himself endorsed him? The one other thing I ever heard about J.D. Vance as a criticism, he's with big tech because he's associated with Peter Thiel. Never mind that, of course, Peter Thiel is our guy. He is definitely more decisively based than anyone else in big tech.
100%.
He's definitely, I would much rather have someone like that on our side than against us. But Jim Layman, almost immediately after Trump's endorsement of Blake Masters, just went absolutely berserk. He issued a statement.
Seething, perhaps you could say.
Absolutely, just completely crushed at the fact that Blake Masters was endorsed by Trump instead of him. And he once again said, this is just his campaign is just a subsidiary of a big tech billionaire. And notice, of course, he doesn't name who the big tech billionaire is, because it would immediately fall apart. It's not like it's Parag Agrawal or Mark Zuckerberg funding this guy. But he also claimed that Blake Masters, he's an anti-Semite. He's quoted Nazis. He said World War II was unjust. He supports the Unabomber. He literally, I'm not kidding, the campaign ad for this literally shows a picture of Blake.
It was amazing.
It shows Blake Masters' picture on like a billboard with a thumbtack in it, and there's lines connecting it to a picture of the Unabomber and a picture of Nazis and concentration camps. It's literally that meme of the crazy guy showing a giant billboard of pictures, tied to each other, trying to explain a conspiracy theory. And I'm like,
yeah, Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
That's what that is.
It was that exact scene, just like there. It's like, look, I'm figured it all out. Okay, it's all coming in. Blake Masters and the Nazis and the anti-Semites and the Unabomber as well. It's all connected together.
He just walked.
I think it's like, come on, Jim. Let's put on this nice straight jacket. We'll get you into the padded room. Get you on some pills to help fix everything. Now take a deep breath, okay, there, buddy.
And don't worry. The institution where you will be housed, the insane asylum you're going to, It'll be solar powered. Relax. You'll be fine. But yeah, coping and seething, China first, Jim Layman, China Jim, as some people call him. You are done. And Brnovich, again, the one person who's more burned than him has got to be Brnovich, because he's been trying so hard to turn an about face and say like, oh no, I swear I support election integrity. Oh, then why have you done literally jack in your position as Attorney General? He basically is Arizona's Jeff Sessions. He rolled over and died and did nothing with his position of power whatsoever. And Trump saw right through that. So I think this is the best possible endorsement. Blake Masters is definitely our guy. And it needs to be said, again, Arizona, the map for Republicans in the Senate is not pretty this year. Of course, I think they're probably going to take back the House just by virtue of the redistricting alone. But they're probably going to walk away with a comfortable majority. Senate is not looking good. I mean, they've got to hold Pennsylvania. They've got to hold North Carolina. Ohio, J.D. Vance probably holds, but they have more vulnerable seats. It's like what the Democrats' map in 2018 was. In a favorable year for them, they still had a net loss of 2 seats. I think this, along with Nevada and Georgia, are the only realistic pickups in the U.S. Senate for Republicans this year. So if they don't hold this one, their chances decrease significantly. If they don't take this one, rather, their chances decrease significantly. And like I said, the incumbent is Mark Kelly, the husband of former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, who, for obvious reasons, is a gun-grabbing lunatic. And he's probably, having a lot of very satisfying wet dreams right now over what's going on right now with the gun control debate. But he has very much been able to shield most of that with this feigned charisma of, I was an astronaut, and I was an astronaut.
I went to space.
I went to space. I mean, because come on, who doesn't love astronauts, right? And we have had astronauts serve in office, John Glenn, for example, from Ohio. But the fact of the matter is that this guy is a lunatic. He is crazy far left. Sinema obviously is a moderate in her own right, but especially compared to Kelly, she looks like a Republican, basically. So we got to take this gun-grabbing nut down, and Masters is the best man to do it. I can't wait to see him take the stage. I always liked him, even way back from when I first heard about him, when a friend told me that he launched his campaign. Something he said in his announcement speech was that he wants to see America restored to a society where a family can be raised successfully and comfortably, happily, on one income alone. And that is so true. We need to get back to that.
Yeah, no, I think that's the thing with Blake Masters, because it's not just the sort of the Trump's policies. It's something that is far deeper in America first. And I think this whole point of as you said, this policy where he wants to get people raising a family on a single income. That's something that I really haven't heard any major politicians talk about for in a long while. And I think if you're somebody who cares about family values, who cares about traditional marriage and sort of that being the building block for a successful society, this is almost one of the main things you should be focusing on, especially now. But, there's too many Republicans who just think, market and we can't do it. The economy is just, we can't do anything about it.
Well,
we just
GDP.
have to let it do its thing.
Exactly. Yeah,
but there are so many other forces to it, and you can actually, there are so many forces which have affected the market over the past 50 years. So why can't we just do something to go back to how it functioned previously? It's not that hard.
As they say, reject modernity, embrace tradition. That's how it used to be. A house like the House of the Simpsons could be afforded by a man with one income in the 1990s. All right. And now you look at people living in, little boxes that cost $600,000. It's absolutely insane. And this is, like you said, this is at the heart of so many societal and cultural issues. This is not a single policy written by some bow tie wearing nerd in a think tank. This is not, some fiscal matter. This is something about that gets to the heart of the breakdown of the American family, of American society. And guys like Masters and J.D. Vance has said similar stuff about the importance of the family. This is so important. Those are conservatives who really understand what is at stake here, that ours is a fight for the very future of America as a civilization. And that is why above all else, he is also a young man as well. He's 35, by the way. He will be one of the youngest. I think he'll be only the second youngest senator behind that scrawny little scumbag John Ossoff in Georgia. But just imagine, picture this, if you will, Jack. One more thing, so important. I hope I don't get you too excited by talking about this, but imagine in January of 2023, Senators Vance, Masters, and Brooks joining forces with the likes of Senators Hawley and Cotton, and maybe throw in Senator Herschel Walker and Senator Dr. Oz to form an America First caucus in the U.S. Senate.
Amazing. Now, this is the thing. I know it's already happening. The foundations are already there because it was Marjorie Taylor Greene who, when she endorsed Masters and Vance, just a few days after this, she said, I'm already working to build a new America First team in Congress. We're going to have all those guys you mentioned in the Senate. We're going to have, Gosar, Green in Congress, and loads of the other new America First representatives who are going to come in. Wow, we'll have gone from barely anything in 2016, anybody of this caliber there, to come 2022 or January 2023. The America First caucus is going to be an unironic power base in Congress. Can you imagine that? I cannot wait. And that's the thing. I mean, even if a couple guys don't get elected here or there, we don't get exactly what we want, it's still gonna be there. Maybe not exactly, maybe not perfect, but regardless of the outcome, it's gonna happen. It is, as they say, America First is inevitable.
Exactly. And it's not just a matter of Republicans regaining the majority, because it's been said, of course, the rumblings I have heard is that President Trump's entire decision on whether or not he will run again to pull a Grover Cleveland in 2024 is whether or not the Republicans regain majority of the House and the Senate. Because, of course, if he comes in 2025 and one House is still under Democratic control, then what's the point, right? But it's not just about a majority. It's about getting a sizable portion of that majority to influence the rest of the caucus to vote with President Trump and his America First policies, and to not have a repeat of the Paul Ryan fiasco we saw that wasted his first 2 years. And that's why another reason the Senate is so important. And I've been debating some of my friends about this, because a lot of my friends, and feel free to chime in, Jack, that some of them were not happy, to say the least, that's putting it mildly, over President Trump's endorsement of Kevin McCarthy. And I said, all right, I get it. I'm from California. My home district is a couple districts over from his. I am well aware of why people don't like him. Do I think he'll be a great, fiery Speaker of the House like a Newt Gingrich? No. But I think Trump, being the businessman, the pragmatist that he always has been and always will be, he sees the lesser of two evils here. He knows that between the two leaders of Republicans in Congress, McCarthy and McConnell, which one is he going to have an easier time working with? It's going to be McCarthy, right? Versus McConnell, who Trump is done with him, obviously. Trump wants nothing to do with a little turtle from Kentucky, and that's why the Senate's so important. This Republican majority, as I said, at best, it gets to 53 seats, because it's at 50 right now. They pick up Georgia, Arizona, maybe Nevada. I don't really think Colorado or New Hampshire is going to happen. That's just me. But let's just say about 53. You have 53 seats. All you need is 4 just to be safe, but 3 senators, namely Senators Vance, Masters, and Senator Brooks or whoever, to stand up and say, sorry, Mitch, your days are done. Hand over the cocaine. You are no longer going to be Senate Majority Leader. And that's all it takes. If they can't come to a consensus, assuming all the Democrats stay united behind voting for Chuck Schumer, as Rush Limbaugh called him, Chuck U. Schumer, then they get someone else. They have no choice. They're stonewalled, stalemated until they get someone else. Who that someone else will be, I don't know. I mean, the talk I've heard is that the only likely replacement would be Rick Scott from Florida. But either way, you get Mitch McConnell out of there, and already by the start of the new Congress, the America First caucus in the Senate, all 3, 4, however many of them are, have already done something massive for the right.
Oh, exactly. And I think with the Kevin McCarthy endorsement, for one thing, he's not endorsing him for Speaker. He's endorsing him in his race. That's important. And, we've heard various rumblings of a challenge for Speaker. But of course, how can we challenge him for Speaker when we haven't even had the elections yet?
Exactly.
That's going to come up afterwards. So I think Trump is, well, as you said, he's clearly the lesser of two evils between him and McConnell. So what does Trump lose by endorsing him just in his home race right now, which is definitely going to win anyway? It's a tactical thing, to place the ground so that, if any challenge against him loses, then there's no problem with that. So this is people need to realize that Trump does, while some of his endorsements have been completely off the wall, a lot of the times he does actually know what he's doing. It's his business instincts that got him to be president in the first place. And, sometimes you do just have to trust the plan.
Exactly. I would say his political instincts are right 98% of the time, and maybe that's being a little conservative with my estimation there. Yes, he has made some not great endorsements. I personally supported his endorsement of Dr. Oz. I totally understand why he did that. Jacob and I have disagreed on that, but other friends of mine and I have disagreed as well. And of course, I, being from California, I will never forget his disastrous endorsement of John Cox for governor in 2018, but that's something I'd rather not talk about. But at the end of the day, he makes the right picks, and very rarely will he come out and warn when he will warn us that a certain candidate in a primary is not fit to win the general election. People said, oh, he's cucking out when he wouldn't endorse Kathy Barnett in Pennsylvania. He came out and issued a rare statement saying, oh, I like her, I'll support her in the future, but if she's the nominee here, she's got too much of unknown history, too much baggage, she can't win the general election. I reminded my friends, I said, remember the last time I can recall Trump made a statement like that, an anti-endorsement in a primary warning someone wouldn't win? It was in 2017 with a fellow in Alabama by the name of Roy Moore, and we all know how that turned out. So I trust, you're right, trust the plan, I trust Trump, Godspeed Blake Masters, and the sooner we get an America First caucus, the better. Oh, I'm getting so excited just thinking about this. This is going to be great. Again, we have to wait over a month now for the results of the Arizona primary, as well as Missouri is also happening that day. That's another interesting primary that's worth talking about perhaps some other time, because that's a safe red seat no matter what. The only question is who wins the primary. And of course, I think that's the last major race now where Trump hasn't made an endorsement yet. So we'll see if he makes a pick in Missouri or not.
Yeah, because is it Greitens and a few other people, if I recall correctly?
Former Governor Eric Greitens, yes, the former Navy SEAL who got railroaded on false accusations where the FBI later exonerated him. The incumbent Attorney General Eric Schmidt and Congresswoman named Vicky Hartzler. So for a while, Schmidt was the front runner. Then Hartzler kind of burst into the scene, almost like Barnett in Pennsylvania, and then she was the front runner. The last few polls do have Greitens back in the lead. So it seems still like he's the elephant in the room in that race. It is his race to lose. So we'll see what happens there. I personally would lean more. I mean, full disclosure, actually, my personal favorite candidate in the Missouri primary, if I was in Missouri, I would vote for this guy, knowing full well he will not win. Mark McCloskey. I mean, come on. The gun-toting lawyer.
That's kind of based.
That's extremely based. I so wish he had a better shot at that election, because that man in the Senate, don't you?
Can you imagine the content that would just come from that, regardless of any legislation? It would be funny.
He passes by Raphael Warnock in the hall, like, "Hey, I see you. It's just, oh man, so good.
Oh boy.
So, all right, enough dreaming, enough fantasizing about the future of America First, which is looking brighter than ever before. We are here to give you entertainment, and what better entertainment than anger? And oh boy, Jack, I am ready for your thoughts on this one, but we got to talk about this, man. This is, of course, it's June. It's Mental Illness Awareness Month, otherwise known as Pride Month. And Fox News, all right? We know they've been going down the tubes for years, all right? We know Rupert Murdoch is increasingly not involved with the creative and ideological direction anymore. We know his sons have taken over, and allegedly not only are his sons being younger, more liberal, but apparently their wives are hardcore leftists and feminists who are basically leading their husbands around on leashes and telling them what to do. So they really run Fox News. So Fox News has been getting worse and worse. We all know this. Going back to 2020 with them rushing to call Arizona like as soon as the polls closed, even though nobody else did that. They insisted there was no voter fraud. They won't talk about voter fraud. You know, they refused to talk about the new 2000 Mules movie, for example. And there was a big blow up between Dinesh D'Souza and Tucker Carlson over that. And a lot of people, rightfully so, left Fox in droves in the aftermath of 2020, largely for Newsmax. Newsmax seems to have taken up the decisive title of the Fox alternative. But for those who are still there, if you haven't already seen this, we're going to play a clip, just a segment of this. It's 4 minutes long. Link will be in the description below. Share it far and wide, please, for the sake of the country, knowing how fake Fox News is. This is faux news. This is real fake news. Get ready for this from the conservative news channel, Fox News.
Rylan Whittington, whose journey of transitioning at age 5 has been seen by 7 million people in a family YouTube video. Brian Yannis has the story about that family that hopes their experience can help others. Watch here.
If you saw me walking down the street, you wouldn't think anything different.
14-year-old Rylan Whittington is a typical Southern California teenager. And the Whittingtons, along with mom Hillary, dad Jeff, and sister Brinley, are a typical family. The only difference, though, in Rylan's eyes, is what this family can mean to the tens of thousands of kids under 18 who identify as transgender.
We put our story out there so people could see that, like, there's another family out there that is going through what we're going through, or there's another family who's proud of who they are.
Before Rylan could even speak, he managed to tell his parents that he is a boy.
I could just see that it wasn't him trying to be a brat. It was like painful. It was truly painful for him to have to wear feminine clothing and for us constantly telling him that you're a girl.
That's about a minute. The video itself is about 4 minutes long. I'm not playing anymore. Again, full link in the description below. I gotta let off my steam here, Jack, and then I will unleash you to give your thoughts. But I'm done. I am done with Fox News. I am done. I am sick and tired of anybody left who still defends Fox News at this point. Because you've heard all the arguments, oh, there's still a few good people there. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. The few good people left do not justify this, all right? In being complicit in voter fraud and shutting down Trump, that's one thing, all right? That's bad enough. But this, I have said before on a previous episode, and some people told me after that episode came out that I was quite animated about it, because I am. This trans nonsense, supporting and mainstreaming and reinforcing the delusions of trannies, mentally ill people, to the point that children are being abused surgically, biologically, you're drugging them up. That is unacceptable. It's evil, it's demonic, it's satanic, it's child abuse. We need to draw the line and have a zero tolerance policy for trannies and this trend. I guess that's the proper word to call it, because it's not real. It's fake. It's a mental illness. It's a delusion. It's a trend. That's the only reason anybody is buying into this. And the fact that Fox News is mainstreaming this, and that at the beginning, that was Dana Perino, not one of their main people, but she's certainly been one of the longest surviving stars of The Five, among others, a fixture on Fox News for a while, celebrating this. Oh, this is so great. This is so inspirational. The title of the video literally says, California transgender teen family hope to be an inspiration to others. I am done. I am done with Fox News. No more. Not for Tucker, not for anyone else. Let this ship explode and burn and sink down to the darkest depths of the bottom of the ocean where it belongs. Let its wreck split apart upon hitting the ocean floor and let it disintegrate into a faint outline on the ocean floor after 100 years of disintegration. Let there be nothing left of Fox News. I am done. Newsmax gang, OAN gang, if you're into that stuff, let's go. Screw Fox. I am done with Fox. I am done with all of this. No support for trannies ever. Jack, what's your take?
Yeah, I don't think I could agree more. But I think that this segment, wasn't just, general promotion of trans kids and all of that. It was deliberately, in my opinion, designed to ensure that Fox News viewers or parents who watch Fox News or, who have who may have kids who are going through, gender dysphoria and think they're transgender. It is designed to brainwash them into the pro-trans narrative. There are a few places, so obviously you didn't play the entire clip, but for those who do watch it themselves, there are a few key points that I noted out when I wrote this up yesterday, and I noted that they actually that the mother Hillary. What a name that. Yeah, very fitting.
Lock her
she
up.
said
Lock
that
her
it
up,
was
literally.
Yeah, well, she should be. I mean, this is child abuse, in my opinion. She said that it was that actually, they supported Ryland because of their deep conservative faith, because they believe in God and that He created us the way He wanted us. So then He created Ryland just the way he is. That's a quote. So it's not, oh, God made you a boy or a girl, therefore you actually are that. No, it's God made you have these thoughts of gender dysphoria, therefore you should actually change the body that He put you in. So that's the first thing. And then the main one that I saw that was pretty powerful on this was that they recounted a story of going to a support group of transgender kids, and they said that they met a dad whose child had cut themselves or self-harmed because they showed gender dysphoria times at the same age, so 3, 4, 5, as Ryland did, and they didn't support them. And then there's a quote, and they said, I'd rather have a living son than a dead daughter. I guarantee that if we had pushed back and done what a lot of parents do, I don't think we would have one of the kids that you see before here today. This is what Fox News have put on. They have said explicitly, without challenging this, there was no challenge to any of the narrative that was put out here. It was that if you have a kid who's going through gender dysphoria, who's struggling with all of this, if you do not support them to become trans, they will kill themselves and their blood will be on your hands. That is the narrative that is being pushed to Fox News viewers right now, which is insane to me.
During daytime promotion, yeah. And again, keep in mind, this is part of Fox openly admitting that they have a month-long theme of America Together, celebrating Pride Month. They have a graphic on their website of America in rainbows. They literally spell out LGBTQ, XYZ, barbecue, KKK plus, whatever. It's insane. And there's so much to unpack here. Like, I love what you said in the story that, like, they said, I'd rather have a living son than a dead daughter, whatever it was. Did anyone show him the suicide rates for those even after they get the surgeries and whatever? They still commit suicide at rates of at least 40% or more. The surgeries
No, because they only discussed them, just the fact that they just commit suicide and self-harm.
Oh, and
they're like, well, that's the stat, so believe us, there's nothing more to look into here.
So many things. Like, as this particular story, this Ryland, I don't know if that's her real name or not, or her new trans name, whatever. And yeah, she's a she, by the way, not a he. They started putting her on hormone blockers or whatever it is, the surgery, whatever, at the age of 6. All right. Oh, before she could even talk, she knew she was a boy. What does that mean? What does that mean if you literally can't even speak? Most kids start speaking vaguely at what, 2, 3, maybe?
Well, in fairness, she was deaf, so probably a little later, but still.
But even then, the idea that, like, before a kid can speak, they know they're the different gender. Kids don't even understand 2 + 2 at that age. All right, how are they supposed to understand the idea of gender? It's
I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was 5 or around that age or so, I mean, like, I knew that boys are penises, girls are vaginas, vaguely, sort of, but I also thought that if you had short hair, you're a boy, and long hair, you're a girl.
Yeah, call me crazy.
But I wasn't. That was my concept of. I still knew that we look different of different bodies, but I still thought, short hair boy, long hair girl, and that's how it is. So to say that kids of this age overall have any concept of transgenderism or transsexualism as we used to call it, had any concept of I want to be put on puberty blockers and chop my dick off, etc. They don't understand this. So who's pushing in it? I think somebody said well, it's the same thing if you see like a vegan dog. Who's to blame? It's not the dog.
It's definitely not. It's like you said, that's what's so important. These are kids. They don't have the concept of sex or biology or anything like that. They are far away from discovery. They haven't even gone through puberty yet. How are they supposed to know? This has been debunked. Again, I give credit where credit is due. Bill Maher has been on point with calling out the left for quite a while now, and I love the segment he did on the trans stuff. And he basically said, paraphrasing, he said, all they're really doing is experimenting on children. And he said the whims of children, especially the younger they are very fleeting, they're naive, and they're idealistic. How many little kids want to be fairies or whatever, or wanted to be, pirates? He said that, I love the story he told. He said, if every single 8-year-old kid today set out determined, hell-bent, nothing would stop them, to become what they want to be when they're 8 years old, we'd have a lot more princesses and cowboys running around. And Bill Maher said, when I was that age, I wanted to be a pirate. Thank God nobody signed me up for a eye removal or a peg leg surgery, and cut off an eye and a leg because I want to be a pirate and give me a pet parrot that's stuck to my shoulder forever. Like, he's right. These kids will grow up out of these phases. And yeah, of course, you'll have times where boys will want to, play with girls' toys or vice versa. Girls will want to play with, boys' toys. And I mean, that to me, that's one of the saddest things I think is as the result of this LGBTQ, WYZX nonsense is the death of the tomboy stereotype. You remember tomboys, Jack? Remember when that was a thing? That girls were...
It's basically tomboy genocide. And unironically, that's what this is.
Oh, such a tragedy.
In fact... And I mean, literally, not in just that they are killing off tomboys as a concept. I mean, by putting girls who are tomboys onto the surgeries and the hormones or whatever, you are literally killing tomboys.
Literally, you're sentencing them to death via the suicide rates, which the numbers do not lie. But it's repulsive. It is evil. And again, these parents who are sick, they will experiment on their kids because for whatever reason, whether it's their own ideology, if they're left wing, or whether it's, peer pressure, that's the thing. Whenever I hear a parent or whenever I hear someone say, oh, I have a trans kid, I don't hear I have a trans kid. What I hear is I psychologically, physically, and sexually abuse my child. That's what I hear. This is evil. Parents like this need to be locked up. Anyone who supports this need to be locked up. That poor girl needs to get the rehabilitation, the treatment she needs. And I'm done. I'm so done with this. We should have absolutely zero tolerance. And I mean zero. That is the right proper stance. As it said in the Bible, He who would corrupt the children, what the harshest punishments are those who would corrupt the children and lead them astray. And we're seeing it here. We're seeing it mainstreamed with Disney. And again, the pushback against Disney has been pretty impressive, in my opinion.
Oh no, 100%. But like, just one thing before we move on from the to the broader issue from the Fox story. This isn't just any random trans kid, right? This is an activist family. Like, they put out a video in 2014 when they were 7. They've written a book about it. They did a short film with CNN. And in the clip that Fox News showed right at the start, there's a little still photo from an event last year in California where Ryland went out as a 13-year-old trans kid and supported the travel ban that California had put on for their state employees to other states that weren't LGBT friendly. And who was standing right behind Ryland in this clip? None other than State Senator Scott Wiener, who last week proposed that Drag 101 should be part of K-12, was the guy in 2020 responsible for relaxing the rules to be put on the sex offender registry, and stopped HIV, knowingly spreading HIV from being a felony in California. That's the people that this guy is with, and that these kids are hanging out with. They're not just an ordinary family. They are an activist, pro-transgender family. Like, that's the point here as well.
Exactly. Again, as a former Californian, thank you for bringing up Scott Wiener. Yes, that is his last name, and yes, that is the most fitting name for a politician of this scandalous stature since Anthony Weiner. That absolutely is true. Almost every single bad bill, especially the sexually degenerate ones, guaranteed they're written by this guy, making it no longer a crime to knowingly give someone HIV, all that stuff. Then, obviously, yes, spoiler alert, he's gay himself. Surprise. So that guy, he might be, in terms of the sheer volume and the severity of the perverse, again, demonic and satanic bills he has written, which, of course, anything written by someone with the letter D after the name in California is going to get passed a law. By his record alone, I think dark horse, he may be a dark horse candidate for the most evil politician in all of America right now. That is, I know that's probably a hot take. There's a lot of contenders for that title, but I think he takes the cake. And he knows exactly where he's going when he dies. And I guess he's okay with that, as long as his legacy here on Earth is a lot of mutilated children committing suicide.
Scott's just thinking, no, hell's not real. Everything's going to be fine. And then he finds himself burning in the pit for all eternity.
I'll be reincarnated as a butterfly. Oh, no.
No.
Oh, God. Spoiler alert, he's into BDSM, so he's actually going to like being tortured in hell.
Oh, no. Oh, boy.
It's literally going to be like Saddam Hussein in the South Park movie with the devil.
Yeah. Like, oh, please, carry on.
Oh, God. All right. We gotta move on, though. But this is not going away. And again, it's June. They're going all out. The White House putting out all these statements, celebrating transgenderism, flying the pride flags at embassies around the world, including in Kuwait, where obviously the population has a problem with that, and at the Vatican. Pride flag flying over the Holy See. All right, is nothing sacred anymore? Nothing is sacred, and the worst part to me is that I will give Biden some benefit of the doubt here. Yes, he is senile. We know that. I guarantee you, he doesn't understand any of what transgenderism means. He probably doesn't even believe it's real. But being barely coherent as he is, he's just going along with what his handlers are telling him. No, Joe, this is a thing now. It started a few years ago, but people can change their genders. Kids can be surgically changed from boys to girls. And he's just probably thinking, well, kids, what? Hey, as long as I can still sniff them, I'll be good, right? He's fine with it. But I don't think they really believe this stuff. But they know promoting this will contribute to, as I said before, the breakdown of American society, the breakdown of the family, creating broken, lost, aimless people, creating a nihilist society, which naturally will turn to a party that has a more nihilistic worldview like the Democratic Party, where everything is bad, everything is evil. You've got to keep voting for us to stop, more oppression and to stop isms and phobes wherever they are. And I can't imagine the end game here. I don't want to imagine the end game. I don't think they really have an end game in sight. I think they really have, short-term goals in mind as far as, getting themselves in power into a supermajority now. And what are we going to do with that supermajority? We'll think about in the future. But this can't possibly end well, Jack, can it?
No, it can't. I think, a lot of people say that when you mention, it's all these elites and these people in power, these horrible people who are instituting these policies for their own gain, people either portray them as being evil and all-knowing and all-powerful, they have the world gripped in their hands, or they don't know what they're doing. They're just stupid idiot morons who are just, like they're not evil, but they're just passing stuff because they think it's right or whatever. And they're the ones in power. It's both. They are both evil and stupid, but they only can enact their plan because they're the people who can control the reins of power. But actually, when you realize, just how fragile sort of their system is, how many idiots you have at the top, but it's idiots all the way down, and it's idiots who who will come in armed with guns to take your guns away, in the plan. But if you have millions of idiots, well, then they can overwhelm you via strength of numbers. But I think you're right, is that they're doing this for power, to maintain themselves, but they don't. I genuinely think that they are still surprised at the amount of backlash that they got. That's why, in my opinion, they didn't see Brexit happening. They didn't see Trump happening. They couldn't see just how badly it was going to affect them. They think, we're going to be in our gated communities and we're going to have our, cocaine orgies, as Matt Sincourt talked about.
Rip.
We're just going to carry on doing this. But no, I don't think they realized just how badly the consequences of their actions are going to be felt, not just by the rest of the country, but by them also. It's only a matter of time before I think this whole system of elites that we currently have is going to come crashing down and will be replaced by something far, far much better. So I'm very white-pilled on that.
I agree, and I'm with you, man. White pills all the day. I am your local white pill dealer and always will be. Because I think, among other things, they live in a huge bubble, like you said. It's been true. It's true what's been said. The coastal elites, San Francisco, LA, New York, Washington, D.C., Chicago, they live in these bubbles where, of course, they can't comprehend the idea of rural America, flyover country, as they derogatorily call it. They think, of course there's trans kids everywhere. Oh, yes, I have 5 friends with trans kids. Yes. They can't fathom the idea that a sizable number, a plurality, maybe even a majority of Americans do not agree with them. And they think if they just keep running to the media and the media runs cover for them and their dirty tricks behind the scene, you mentioned Madison Cawthorn, they think, we got rid of Madison Cawthorn, so they won't know about the coke orgies anymore, or they'll just stop asking about it. But then they realize, I think one thing that has been said that is definitely true, they got ahead of themselves. They put their cart before the horse on the issue of demographic replacement. Great replacement theory. Realistically, white replacement. It has been talked about. Tucker's been talking about it. Of course, the whole new discussion in the aftermath of the Buffalo shooting. And the fact of the matter is that, they are seeking to replace Americans with good, loyal hordes of illegal aliens who will be amnestied and vote blindly for Democrats for the next 3 generations. They thought they had it in 2016. Turns out they didn't quite have it yet. Now they think they're going to get it under the next 4 years of Biden. Will they? I don't know. Jacob and I have talked about that. Will it happen in time for 2022? Probably not. Will it happen in time for 2024 so that they won't even have to cheat? Maybe. I don't know. That's why I think 2024 will be probably the last chance one way or another. Even if Trump wins in 2024, I still don't have that much hope for 2028 and after. I just want to see him have one more term to come back and bring fire and fury like the world has never seen on the elite and on the swamp and really drain the swamp, or rather burn the swamp down, I think is the better analogy. But ultimately, I think this is going to have backlash because how far can you go? When you talked about gun control, for example, they want to talk about raising the minimum age to buy AR-15s from 18 to 21. So that, as I said before in my previous episode with guest fill and host Patrick Von Hanslick, they want you to be old enough to vote and old enough to go fight and die in a foreign war, but not old enough to own a gun. Well, they want you to be 21 to be able to buy a gun, but they say you can decide your gender at the age of 3. You can decide it before you're even talking, apparently, according to them. It's clown world. It makes no sense whatsoever, but it is only going to work if we mainstream it and explain to people in the most brutal terms possible what is happening here. And I do want to get your input on this as well. I think you and I can agree we haven't seen this yet because of the people who are behind it, but something making the rounds right now, obviously very appropriately timed given the month it is a new documentary from the Daily Wire, courtesy of Matt Walsh, and it's called What is a Woman? And here's the clip from the preview that has gone viral of Matt Walsh talking to a guy who went through this stuff. So let's listen to this real quick. And even without seeing it, I will explain the visuals because there is a key visual part, but just listening to it is powerful enough.
For the first time in history, a marginalized group has a huge dollar sign on the top of their head. We have 5 children's hospitals in the United States promoting that.
and he holds up his arm to show like a really like long, like a kind of skin graft scar or something like that on his arm.
What? That's a phalloplasty. That's a bottom surgery. We have 5 children's hospitals in the United States telling girls that they can be boys at $70,000 a pop in a surgery that has a 67% complication rate. That will kill me from infection, that I can't sue on. We're butchering a generation of children because nobody's willing to talk about anything.
So that's just a fragment of it. Now, of course, the documentary is behind the Daily Wire paywall because, of course, I don't like Ben Shapiro. I used to be a huge fan of his. This is part of my political journey. I don't support him anymore. Not a huge fan of Daily Wire in general, although, you know, I like some of the guys there, you know, Clavin and Knowles. And Walsh, I think you and I can agree on this. Jack, he has gotten decisively more based than he once was in the aftermath of 2020, the race riots and the election fraud and the lockdowns. He's arguably the most right-wing person there now, which is pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah. He's my favorite guy. I think there was either a clip or something. I remember it was like a Daily Wire discussion, and something like Matt Walsh was trying to bring up something, you know, based, and then he was immediately shut down by Ben Shapiro and everybody else for daring to bring the topic up. And I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know, you know, if Matt Walsh ever comes out from under the thumb of the Daily Wire management, I mean, he's already doing that, but can you imagine what, you know, punished Matt Walsh would look like?
Oh my God.
Jeez. That would be a force to reckon with, in my opinion.
That would be fantastic. I look forward eagerly to the Matt Walsh redemption arc nearing its completion. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's stuff like this, like that visual. Again, we can't show it right now, but the visual is disturbing. And you hear it in his voice. You hear him breaking down. And he later says in the clip, you know, I have several daughters, you know, and they, who are the same age, you know, I was. They want to, you know, promote that to my daughters. And he says, you know, if ever these people try to hurt my daughters that way, and he starts breaking down, and Matt Walsh keeps his composure, admittedly, but like, it's hard to watch. You know, no one ever talks about the people who regret it. You always see the stories of like, oh, the trannies are like, oh, we're great. I'm living my best life now that I'm a man instead of a woman, vice versa. You never talk to the ones who immediately regret it and want to revert. And they want to go back to the way that things were. But unfortunately, you can't just go back. You can't. When you cut that thing off, you can't just put it back on. It doesn't work like that. So it really is brutal and it's painful. And they silence those stories. The media does, because it doesn't fit the narrative. But they really are destroying a future generation. And again, it's not just the handful of the ones who actually go through with it. It's the broader support. Like, oh yeah, we support trans rights. We support that hideous new rainbow flag with the pink and white and blue stripes and the triangle, the black and brown stripes, because I guess black and brown people are now a sexual minority. I don't know. Like, it's getting a lot worse. And TikTok is promoting it. You know, libs of TikTok doing great work exposing that stuff. And this, again, where does this end? When does this stop? Is it going to take more documentaries like this from guys like Matt Walsh? I think that would be a huge part of it. I think, but nothing short of the Republican Party coming out against it. Because knowing the GOP establishment, it's only a matter of time before we have a tranny running for office as a Republican somewhere, and the RNC is going to be promoting them.
Well, I mean, you know, that was obviously Caitlyn Jenner tried to do that in California.
I forgot. Yeah. Before Fox News hired him.
Yeah, I know, right? Which is just hilarious to me. But I mean, especially, you know, on the trans issue, especially on the trans kids issue, I genuinely think that when the long arc of history concludes, this is going to be looked back on as bad, if not as worse, than slavery. You know, it's going to be, you know, because we think now, like, you know, like, how could you just, you know, transport, you know, millions of Africans to another continent and like enslave them and beat them up and whip them and force you to work, you know, and just have these, you know, horrific things that resulted from it. You know, how could you do that? How could anybody at the time ever think that was a good thing and then turn around and get a 14-year-old girl to, you know, cut her breasts off and like put her on testosterone, and just let them all kill themselves, you know, and people are going to be so ashamed that they supported this to begin with. You know, once society comes around to just realizing just how evil it is, and you know, people like us who've spoken out against it from, you know, as soon as it really becomes mainstream, and even before that, you know, we're going to be hailed, you know, sort of like the early abolitionists who were somehow the small minority of people who actually saw what was wrong with the world and wasn't afraid to speak out against it, despite the huge societal consequences that resulted.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great comparison. I think, well, because you think slavery, some of the key differences, I think, slavery, of course, is something that existed for pretty much since the dawn of man, dating all the way back to the Hebrews under the rule of the Egyptians. But this trans stuff obviously just started within the last 10 years, I guess. I mean, as a mainstream thing. But it's even worse in many ways because, sure, it hasn't been around as long, but it's defiance of basic biology. Slavery is one thing. Slavery is just forcing another human to be in servitude to another human, which of course is wrong. You're not defying their biology by doing that. To say, oh, men can be women and vice versa, they can decide their gender when they're 3, whatever. It's literally flies in the face of biology. It's like saying dogs can be pigs and birds can be cats. It's nonsensical. It's even worse than the peak of degeneracy at the height of the Roman Empire with what guys like Caligula were doing, and they were into some really horrible, degenerate debauchery, but even that could not compare to what is happening now. And again, it's the children who are being affected the most. It's innocent children who don't know any better, who don't understand that, I think Revenge of the Sith said this really well, that when you tell a little girl, oh, you can be whatever you want, you can be a boy or a girl, when they're 6 years old, they'll be like, oh, okay, mommy, okay, daddy. They'll think it's a game. They don't understand, you can change your costume, whatever, you can choose what you want to be. They don't understand the consequences, but then they reap the lifelong consequences of it, that they suffer for the mistakes of their parents, the sins of their parents, not mistakes, the sins of their ideologically driven parents. And again, it is encouraged by pop culture. When you see it in pop culture, you see, again, the perfect example, Ellen Page, all right? The actress, kind of a low-key actress. She was in Juno, and then she was in Inception. Never really a big star, but she was kind of a thing in like the late to mid-2000s. And then when she was becoming irrelevant, what does she do to get attention? She comes out as a lesbian. So then she has relevance. It's like, oh, lesbian pride for about 5 minutes, then fades away for a few more years. Then, oh, I need more attention. I need to be relevant again. Oh, I'm trans now. And she gets top surgery and everything. Like, it's painfully obvious that she is doing it for attention and to stay relevant. Damn the consequences. Now, who knows how long it will be until, she comes out for more attention and says she regrets it, and I'm back to being a woman now, and I'm back to being straight, whatever. I don't know. I mean, maybe this was just a grand scheme for a big switcheroo to say she's a lesbian so she could date a woman and then come out as trans, so now she's a man again, so now she's dating a straight woman. I don't know. But at the end of the day, and again, this is being encouraged by pop culture, by actresses and celebrities, by TikTok. The ultimate cancer. I'm convinced TikTok is the final stage 5 cancer of social media. Like, there's nothing worse than TikTok. Twitter looks like OG 2010 Facebook in comparison to TikTok. TikTok is the absolute worst. Funded, by the way, and owned by China. Makes you think, doesn't it? Makes you think. Those Chinese, the Chinamen really know what's up. They know how to tear America apart from the inside out. They've been doing it with economics, and maybe they are now doing it through social and cultural issues and movements.
Yeah, I've got to say, I'm a little bit more white-pilled on TikTok, because it's like, yes, there is, it's sort of, TikTok has both sort of the best and worst parts of sort of social media. In terms of the best, like, especially in the early days, say 2018, 2019, when it first started getting popular, most of the popular content was sort of, not exactly politically correct. And, for kids, it was sort of going up against, railing against furries and, joking against stuff like this. It was quite transgressive. And there still is a sizable amount of sort of that community on TikTok. And especially, this is the thing, because the algorithm, unlike all the other social medias where they all, if anybody says anything, barely right wing, boom, like that's it, you're taken off, you're deplatformed. Doesn't happen on TikTok. If you start to engage with right wing content, you'll get more right-wing stuff pushed towards you, because that's what the algorithm cares about. The Chinese don't necessarily care about stopping, people from hearing right-wing stuff. They just want to keep you on the platform and mine your data, so they'll keep pushing it towards you. And in fact, many times when either they banned, people I follow, the For You page serves me then new accounts straight back up after they've been banned. And I'm like, I've got to say, in terms of getting Zoomers to more over to this side of politics, if they engage just a little bit on right-wing content on TikTok, it will be served towards them, and they will finally, and they could have their eyes open to a lot of things. But the problem is, it goes the opposite direction. If if they interact with left-wing content even a little bit, that gets pushed to them, and they then get sent down that direction. So that's why TikTok is a very mixed bag. It has some, as I said, it's some of the worst parts of it. But in terms of, platforming right-wing content and being sort of, for younger right-wing audiences, it's actually pretty underrated in my opinion.
That's very interesting. I never thought of it like that, but you definitely made a good point that really was a mind-blowing moment for me when you said the Chinese don't care about censoring you if you're conservative or not. They just want to mine your data, which, I mean, that's pick your own poison at that point. But they're not censoring you. That's interesting. So basically what you're saying, Jack, is we don't have to rely on Elon Musk buying TikTok to save it.
Yeah, well, the only bad thing with TikTok is that, yes, they do take people down, but they take people down all across the political spectrum. If you say like words like, like kill or name or like, or sexually explicit words, they'll, exactly. They'll just take you down regardless of what side you're on. So people left, right, moderate, completely non-political people, get strikes just as much as everybody else. It's a very even-handed censorship system, and it's definitely not just targeted against us, which I find quite refreshing, even if we may still fall victim to it.
Right. But hey, if before TikTok becomes the saving grace of the Zoomers, that will definitely be a twist that you could not have written better in a script. So, we'll wait and see on that. Keep me updated on the progress of TikTok. I don't use it. I'm a millennial. I'm no Zoomer. I'm an old man. I don't touch TikTok. That's just not for me. But we'll see what happens. We will see what happens there. Jack, any final thoughts on this? We obviously have covered a lot of ground here. Any closing thoughts on America First or the trans nonsense? Any other closing thoughts you have for our viewers today?
Well, I suppose overall it's just really, I'm excited to see what's happened. I think after the election, in my opinion, this is an opinion, not a fact. My opinion was stolen from President Trump.
That's an opinion that you and I share, my friend.
Yeah, and you can't get sued for an opinion. But so many people just thought, it's all ogre. It's when the coronavirus came in, all the restrictions. They thought, God, everything's fucked. I didn't think the world could get any worse after Biden came in. It's all screwed. And then now, 2020 and 2021, bad years in my opinion. But 2022, there's just I can feel the energy coming back in. It feels like 6 years ago. It feels like 2016 to me again. I can't put my finger on it, but obviously I can point to certain things, like as we said, the Blake Maston endorsement. People rejecting, transgenderism in huge ways. Even normies, coming against it now. But it's like. But even still, it's something that I feel is far more like spiritual. Like, again, like it's a 2016 reawakening 2.0 dark manga edition. And honestly, 2022 going to be times, and then 2024, it's going to be even more powerful and more explosive. And the pendulum is going to swing back even further our direction this time. I can feel it. And yeah, I'm excited. That really is the takeaway. You should be excited, looking forward to what is going to come down the pipeline very, very, very soon.
I definitely agree. Again, not just your enthusiastic, your contagious enthusiasm there, but honestly, yeah, you can only go the left, the establishment. When I say you, I'm referring to like the establishment, the elite, basically. They can only go so far puking down our backs and telling us it's a mudslide. All right, they can only go so far with obfuscating and gaslighting and saying, oh, no, everything's great. Biden saying we have the best economy in the world right now, as gas all across the United States has reached California levels. Okay, I used to laugh and say, oh, $4 gas, that's nothing in California. Now it's everywhere, all right? Inflation continues to rise, and the Fed admits they were caught with their pants down and had no idea what to do about it. You have so many other things. You have the numerous international crises that make America look hopeless, look like a loser third world nation, from Afghanistan to Ukraine. You have Biden's approval ratings sinking, even with the media mostly running cover for him. Biden right now, through the averages on both 538 and Real Clear Politics, has the lowest approval rating at this point of his presidency of any president since World War II. That's right, even lower than Trump, even lower than Bad Orange Man. And Trump's approval ratings were only so low because the media was lying and saying he was bad, he was Hitler, he was racist, everything was bad, even though gas was $1.80 a gallon on average. So his approval ratings are lower than Trump's. They are lower than any president since World War II. I think Quinnipiac just had another poll out with him at 33% approval. Second poll this year from Quinnipiac alone to have him at 33% approval. The first was January. And in that poll, by the way, 22% approval rating among Hispanics. and 24% approval rating among young adults, among others. Biden will never recover from this. There is nothing he can do to stop inflation. There is nothing he can do to make things better. The baby formula shortage, nothing is going to turn this around. We're going to see an absolute backlash, I think, in the midterms. And God willing, yeah, that is going to be enough. The economic woes will be enough to sweep Trump right back into the White House in 2024. And I think if that happens, I will be prepared to throw in the towel and say, like I said, I just want him to see one more victory in 2024, and then I don't care what happens after that. I don't care if DeSantis runs or whoever, although if Vance and or Masters run for president, I will sign up first and foremost. But I think we will be in a better position to have Trump serving 2 consecutive non-consecutive terms, Grover Cleveland style, would be better for us than if Trump had won in 2020, rather hadn't had it stolen from him, to serve 2 consecutive terms, and then the pendulum swings really hard in 2028 with or 2024 with a Cuomo presidency or AOC or whoever, because then Trump can't come back and save us because he served his 2 terms already. So I would think that may be the ultimate example if it pans out, and you are right, and I think you are because I agree with you. Then that will be the ultimate example of we lost a battle so we could win the war, and it will be glorious.
I cannot wait. And the emphasis being that, wait, it's going to be so long, but it's going to be so exciting. It just builds up the anticipation towards it and just makes the inevitable victory even sweeter.
Inevitable. Like you said, America first is inevitable, and Donald Trump, the art of the comeback is only just beginning. God willing. And hey, my man, let's think of it this way. Before you know it, it is a long way, but before you know it, 2024 will be right around the corner. And we will all be eagerly anticipating a second Trump presidency with, I don't know, Vice President Vance, perhaps? Or I don't know. Maybe I still would think of Vice President Michael Flynn would be. Oh, you make that guy vice president? Oh, no. Oh, no. Let's not get too much into fantasizing here. We'll save that for a whole separate episode altogether. But thank you so much for appearing on The Right Take today, Jack. This was as fun and informative and entertaining as I thought it would be, and then some. Before you go, buddy, tell our viewers, our listeners, our audience where they can find you, where they can follow you and your work at Valiant News.
Yes, well, you can find me over on Gab, the free speech social network. I'm over there just at JH. Everywhere else, basically everywhere else, I'm available at Jack Hadders. But all my social media is listed on jackhadfield.co.uk. And then there's a link at the top where you can see all of my articles all day, every day, Monday to Friday on valiantnews.com. And you can watch Valiant News live Monday, Wednesday, Friday on cozy.tv/Valiant News.
Right, JH on Gab, Jack Hadders everywhere else, valiantnews.com, all the links. I'll get all the links from you, buddy, and we'll put them in the description below. Follow Jack, follow Valiant News, follow our good buddy Tom Pappert, as always, and all the great work that they are doing and continuing to do. Unfortunately, I really hate to say it this time, but unfortunately, guys, that is all the time we have left for this episode of The Right Take. Thank you guys so much, as always, for tuning in. Jacob will be back soon enough before you even know it, and we will have even more new content and more variety and a broader scope for you guys in the future. Be sure to follow us for all of our latest content, as always, at our website, righttakepodcast.com. The full list of podcast platforms and social media websites where we are available, righttakepodcast.com/subscribe. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, if you are feeling ever so generous, righttakepodcast.com/support. We'll talk to you next week, guys.